Welcome back to Beyond the Pump podcast, where we talk about everything health, fitness, nutrition, lifestyle, and everything in between. And we really just love to have a great time and can't take anything seriously. So what do we got on tap today, gents?
Well, we had a fun day of actually coaching an entrepreneur, running a coaching business and helping people solve their, call it health problems, just to keep it vague. But a topic that I'd say came up out of that conversation was the idea of burnout for coaches, and thought that'd just be an interesting thing to dive into. There's a lot of facets to it, from service delivery to marketing, and my fun word and domain that I bought with that, and the sales side of things, as well as just going out and trying to grow your business and your network. So a lot of times these businesses lead to some form of burnout. You fall out of love with your business, and thought that'd just be a good topic to really dive into today. So I think that's going to be the big thing here, because far too many people fall out of love with this business and stop doing it. And it can be something that serves them at such a high level while serving people at such a high level. And because they're not building it right for them and what they're looking for, they're not sticking around. So I'd kick it off with, how long does the average coach stay in business for, or can keep their job for, maybe even if it's something that it's a job, not a business? Do you guys have any insights or thoughts around that information?
I mean, we've collected a lot of data across, over 20,000 coaches at this point, and granted, like online wise, we know the average personal trainer sticks around for about 3.5 years. We know that the average online coach, oddly enough, sticks around for about 10.5 months, from what we've gathered from a couple of software companies that are so generous with their giving us the information in the back end. So there's probably some semblance of an idea in between. Now, from what I understand, burnout, and when I think about taking a second to just define that, I would love to kick it over to Brandon for a second. Like, how would you define burnout, just to make sure that we're all looping our listeners in, so we're all having the same conversation?
Yeah, burnout, I think it's just you don't enjoy showing up to work anymore, stressed out. Maybe if you're a bigger eater, I've seen with people like that, their appetites slow down and aren't eating as much. I think that's what I've seen, for at least in my life personally, for when it comes to burnout. And outside of coaching too. I mean, that's just in work in general. I'd like a few jobs in the past. I held a job. I'm like, this is fun. I like showing up, and it's like, I really don't want to show up. I need to take a break. And you take some PTO, and you come back and like, all right, I'm a little rejuvenated. So I think there is an appropriate work to play balance, but I think that varies from person to person.
Hence why we try to have fun with every single thing we do. Maybe too much sometimes, because can't control ourselves, Andrew. But yeah, I think I think in my mind, you wake up every day and you dread going to work. Mm-hmm. You don't want to do the things that you know you need to do, or historically you've done, without really reservation or any problem getting it done. And now you're running into this situation where you just don't like it. It's not solving the problem. You get maybe frustrated, less passionate about it. You might even grow some level of disdain towards what's going on, and it's just not fulfilling what you originally wanted it to, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the lack of fulfillment is definitely a strong indicator, and there's an element of like the physiology of it, where physically people almost feel sick. Like there's a signs and symptoms similar to depression. They don't want to get up, they don't want to perform, and I think that from a mental perspective, it is just exactly what you mentioned, like falling out of love with the thing that they originally had such a strong passion and desire to participate and build. And when you think about that, it's the same thing happens during exercise. So I just want to clarify that from my perspective, and what the psychology research says is that burnout is almost inevitable for people that do have passion projects and want to build something. So it's not necessarily something to avoid, but rather having a repair process on the back end of that, I think, is something that every good entrepreneur that sticks around and actually has success long term has had burnout, and they ultimately kind of bounce back from it. So would love to know your opinions on those.
So burnout is effectively, as you're saying, from a research perspective, inevitable. The thing that we need to really understand, or maybe A, be able to recognize when it's happening, but more so B, what is the plan on the back end to kind of recover and come back from this burnout? And there's probably degrees of burnout, and like recognizing when you're in stage one of burnout, like now's the time to solve it before you get to stage 10 where it's almost like I just hate this thing and I'm done.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's definitely an element of, when people get so far gone that they kind of, I think some of the early signs and symptoms are you just kind of, when we used to train athletes, right? I think this is a really good parallel. You would ask them, hey, how much do you look forward to training today? And you would find that the lack of enjoyment would precede that the fact and the notion of them hating it, right? And so there's that spectrum of you love it, you tolerate it, and then you despise it. And so I think that, kind of looking at that spectrum, the continuum, identifying and assessing is going to be a very important aspect of managing that process for yourself. Brandon, what's your opinion?
Yeah, and it's really going to be dependent from person to person. I think a stress tolerance is something that can be developed over time and dependent on, someone that's a high exec CEO may have a higher stress tolerance than someone that's, working a night shifts on at the hospitals on a late night nursing shift. So, a little bit of different shifts and, job wise, but someone that both of them, the nurse may be able to take on more stress, but again, it's going to be dependent from person to person. But an example that I heard in the past is when when you're on an airplane and they talk about, make sure you put your mask on yourself before you put it on someone else, especially in the service industry, especially like coaching where we're working with people. I think it really is important to take time and understand yourself so that you are able to put that, in this case, that theoretical mask on yourself to make sure that you're taken care of so that you can take care of the people that you're trying to service. And I really don't know if there is a simple, if you're stressed out, take a break. Because someone may be more stressed out than someone else by doing simpler tasks. But I think that's the beauty of learning about yourself, and that's part of the journey, and learning what your tolerance levels are for burnout. Because again, that's going to look very different from person to person, industry to industry. But really, the big takeaway there is make sure you're taking care of yourself, so you can either prevent burnout from occurring, or at least minimize the damage that it will do to you and your passion for what you're doing.
Well, I was going to say, these are very conceptual examples that we've kind of shared so far. I mean, I think that it might be helpful for our audience if we maybe depict a time in our lives where we first were exposed to that burnout. And so, Steve, is there something that...
Well, it's funny, and we're on the same page, which is odd. We spend some time together, and we're kind of on the same page.
We've met before, right?
We've met.
Have we met?
We've met. Hey, I'm
Hi.
Steve. How are you? Nice to meet
hello.
you. I'm Steve. Nice to meet you.
This is our first time all hanging out together, though.
Kinda. We've been together in person before with Company A. But Andrew, kind of flipping that on you, like a more, call it tangible example. Do you think being an employee and experiencing burnout versus being the employer and business owner and experiencing burnout is possible in both scenarios and different? And, have you had any experiences maybe where that's happened to you?
He's baiting me, for those of you that don't know, fourth wall break. I mean, I think that at the core of what keeps people moving beyond a certain threshold and potentially ignoring some of the early signs and symptoms is going to differ if it's your thing or someone else's thing. And when I say that, and I'll use one of the early examples of being at a larger fitness organization. I'm not going to go the direction that you're baiting me. But I worked at a company called Lifetime, and it was a wonderful brand, and I really did learn a lot as a early coaching professional / moderately established professional. And there's an entrepreneurial spirit where you go in, you build your book of business, and you really you eat what you kill, metaphorically speaking. It's a commission-heavy environment. You've given as much noose as you need to, or as much rope to hang yourself, as well as freedom. And so for me, I went into this thing, and in my first 2 weeks of being at this beautiful $50-some million club, I clocked 152 working hours across those 2 weeks. And they're like, hey, buddy, you can't clock those hours like that. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm here. I literally would wake up. I would show up before the sun would come up at 4:30 in the morning. I would clock in probably about 4:45, run all the way through basically until about 6, 7, 8 p.m. I would then go and turn around, and I would go to a bartending job from whenever 15 minutes drive over to this place called the Blue Martini in Desert Ridge. So if you guys are listening, we'll take a small cut of that business that we're sending you. And then, in the car, I would change. I'd walk in. I would go bartend. And as an employee, it took me about 2 months before I was literally I remember I found myself sleeping. I fell asleep after getting out of work at 4 a.m. one day. I had a burrito in my mouth, and I had a roommate that had 2 cats, and the cat was eating the burrito out of my mouth, that I was just falling asleep. And so when I say burnout, I clearly blew past a lot of those signs and symptoms because I was so focused on building my own business as an entrepreneur inside of a large organization. But it was so bad for the quality of my relationships and the other things outside of my professional life that, looking back on it, I wish I had spent more time paying attention to myself and the signs and symptoms. And I wish I had known what to do about those things, such as hey, maybe take your vacation. Maybe don't stay until 8 p.m. on a Sunday when you've worked a full 6 days already and the 7th day. And a lot of it was just being in the room and almost being so scared of what that means not to have that happen. And that's what drove me to that point of burnout. And it was I was just so scared of not being successful that I made myself sick. I failed relationships. I almost got kicked out of my PhD program twice. And as well, just a whole different experience from an employee perspective. But from an employer perspective, I'm gonna kick it back over to you, because obviously you've had a large amount of professional success related to the gyms that you've owned and purchased and transitioned, and obviously all the other entrepreneurial stuff that you've had as well. So what about you? I mean, is there anything that you would determine?
Just a quick question, follow up on your piece.
The cat
yes or no is the answer, though. Do you think a business owner contributes to their employees' burnout?
Absolutely. Yeah, because I think that there's a sense of value.
Just a quick yes or no.
Sense of value.
Just a yes or no.
You don't feel valued? Burn out quick.
100%. What are some ways that business owners show up and don't show that they value their employees?
Well, I don't think I ever had a meeting ever with
You've never had a what?
a meeting with my last employer boss. I think I thought you were my boss for a while, but then I was like, I don't know.
Completely different departments.
Shit.
He was in marketing.
Shit.
I was in products and
Andrew just
fulfillment
got
and
thrown.
coaching.
Well, no, we had meetings. No.
We started off with I fired you. Now we've disproved that I fired you. And now Andrew's the target that
No. I had
for you.
meetings with Andrew.
I see.
It's not over.
We had unofficial phone calls where I gave maybe some light direction.
Got it.
That's
There you
probably
go.
about it.
We had meetings. Wait.
So
I wasn't stressed out. I was getting that.
We did transition over. But,
Yeah.
To answer your question from my perspective, Steve, yes, I think that, and to recap on your question, just to make sure I'm answering the right thing, is that you said, do you think that it's possible for business owners to contribute to burnout?
of their employees, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think that, there's several main levers that people will work for an organization. And autonomy, acknowledgement, those are things that a lot of people inherently value. And to give a great example, early on when CrossFit was growing, a lot of people would go to a gym, fall in love with the community, fall in love with the idea, but then start nitpicking at one or two things that kind of became an obsession for them. So then they would pick up and they would go open a box or a CrossFit gym not even half a mile away. And then this became a very divisive thing. And it wasn't that they were really well equipped. They didn't know how to do business. They didn't know how to coach. And it really contributed because of that owner having that particular experience with this one coach, this weird divisive culture that really pulled people in a lot of different directions rather than having a clear conversation and giving people the ability to grow inside of that company, or to even give them a head nod, because there is, I think, a very much in the work, hustle, grind, entrepreneurial sport. Because it almost is it's a win or lose thing. That's not a collaborative, hey, how do we win together? It's, you're my employee, you produce for me, and when you stop producing, you're no longer valuable. And that was my experience in different companies that, were very much you're a cog in the wheel. We don't care about turnover. We don't care about culture. Do your job. And then if you're not going to do your job, we're going to basically, more or less force you out from a cultural perspective. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that culture comes from the top, and culture is probably one of the bigger predictors of being predisposed to burnout. There are people that will grind their way through that, but I think that it's one of the easiest ways that employers can reduce the cost of doing business is just taking care of their people, give them a head nod. And I think that you did a wonderful thing with like things like the assembly platform that you built, which is just like a head nod platform of, hey, like let people know when they're doing something good and there's something that's tangible and it's transactional. You get a dopamine hit when you're like, hey, here's some trophies. I saw that you did this thing. Amazing job. So
You built that?
I didn't build it.
It's his idea.
No
No,
way.
Yeah, he's actually the founder of Assembly.
Oh,
Assembly will take some of that too.
Joinassembly.com.
can I get my login so I can redeem
/
some?
Hopshaw 10. No. But I mean, I think that to kick it back to you, like knowing that we have these perspectives around burnout, kind of how we've had these experiences, you've masterfully evaded my questions. How do we now create an environment that might improve people's resilience or resistance to burnout in your experience? Because I think you've done a great job with that.
So, it starts off, I think, with yourself and leading by example to an extent. For me, in my own early business ownership career, I didn't take the breaks and reduce the burnout likelihood and take care of myself like I needed to. And I also didn't allow the space for my team to do the same thing because it was this scarcity mentality, if you will, of like, if I'm not here working, things are going to break and it's going to blow up and everything's going to die and it's going to be terrible. And listen, if you're literally just in the nitty gritty of building your business, you probably got to dig your heels in and get things done. Mm-hmm. Like you probably shouldn't say, hey, I'm going to open a business and take off in 60 days, and that's just a really soon, we'll say. But the reality is I didn't do it for like 2 to 3 years. I think I took one vacation in that period of time, and it was to go run a race, drove not across the country, from New Jersey to Chicago, ran my first obstacle course race and crushed myself, and then drove all the way back and came back and went right to work. So it wasn't even like any type of vacation because I wrecked myself outside of it. My first real vacation where I went and actually did something was I wanted to pursue getting my skydiving license. And there was no intent of, hey, I need a break from work. It was more of, I'm going to go get my license. And I went again to Chicago actually for 10 days. And I had a blast getting my license. Now, there was definitely some like mental stimulation going, I'll say. There was definitely some physical beating up. I remember I'll look on Facebook after the yearly reminders of 15 years ago, and it's like Steve runs on Duncan and a leave. It's some things don't change. But
We'll take some of that, Duncan.
a leave. But as I came back from that trip, I remember how excited I was to come back to work. And I remember when I knew the trip was over, when I had my license, I was done jumping. I think I had like 2 nights in the city of Chicago. It's like, I'm going to treat myself to a nice steak and enjoy. And the feeling was, I'm ready to go back to work. The trip, I don't want to say was too long, but I pushed myself long enough. I was like, all right, I miss doing what I was doing. So I wanted to get back, wanted to get home. When I came back to work and I started working and I was happier and more energetic and popping out of bed and all these things, it was this aha moment of, even though I was slower for that 10 days away because I clearly wasn't doing any work, if I now came back and was more energetic and a better leader in driving, during the next 10 days, I'd probably get more work done than that 10 days off and 10 days of, cumulative combined. If that worked for me, I bet you it's willing to work or able to work for other people. So vacation and time off and encouraging that stuff became a thing that I firmly believe in. Now, like unlimited PTO, let's say. Now, I'm a fan of unlimited PTO. I'm going to say that first. But there is a too much. If somebody's taking off 1 week, 1 full week every single month, it's too much. I'm sorry, that doesn't make sense. But if somebody wants to take off 1 week every quarter, I'm super supportive of that. If you want to take off 1 day a month and have a 3-day weekend, like that's amazing. I think that's a good thing. So I think there are boundaries and there's reasonable requests to be made. But if you feel like you need some downtime, like go get some downtime and go do something. But don't do it just to take off. Do it because you're going to go and enjoy and get an experience and get away from work in a healthy way, not escaping when you hate work. Like for me, I travel. We know this. I'm going to go do my thing. I never hit a point anymore where, oh man, I hate work. I need to leave. It's rather, I'm looking forward to this next trip. I might be tired for the week leading up to it, but I know when that next trip is before the trip I'm on is over.
Yeah. Well, I think you bring up a great strategy in that there has to be a light at the end of the tunnel. And when people are just head down grind, there is no light. There is no tunnel. It's just the next step and the next step. And it feels like this never ending grind that people will never escape. And I think that really creates a sense of hopelessness that now people just feel this impending sense of dread, and it's a game that they can't win. And so giving yourself things to look forward to, whether it's some kind of milestone to celebrate and what that reward looks like. And I love that you said that you went skydiving, and, you know, with our last several years of experience together, you definitely have a penchant for some thrill-based activities that other people would probably find very stressful. And I think that some people even need a vacation from their vacation, but I think that finding a creative outlet to stimulate you and get you exposed to different experiences is going to be a great way to make sure that you come back extra creative and rejuvenated.
Kind of bouncing off of that and like leaning into the idea of a hobby almost, where I don't 100%. Think you have to have a vacation to get time off, but I think there's things you need to do. So, you know, Brandon, like one of the things that you do on the side, which I actually think is like, it's really cool for me. And I'm like, how do we get these things made? Because like we all know I appreciate my music. We'll let you dive in, but I'm like, how do we get to build our own things and like do this stuff? Because I think that's cool. So like talk about what you do on the side just to have some fun and also escape the normal mundane day to day.
Yeah. And so I DJ. Things.
Many hobbies, this one.
Yeah, whatever. Like I DJ. You know, this up and coming artist.
Do you lift weights at all?
I dabble.
You dabble.
I dabble. Okay. Like I'm almost at 600 pounds on my deadlift, but almost.
Only 600, bro.
Almost, yeah.
He's a CrossFitter these days, folks. He'll never hit it.
But yeah, no, and so yeah, DJing though, it was something I just started in 5th grade. Never really thought it would go anywhere. And yeah, it was a hobby of mine. I'd practice, and you know, someone would ask me to do a wedding here and there, and it was always something I never prioritized because it was like, okay, this is something I can do on the side, and while I'm working full time. Thankfully, people aren't typically getting married on a Friday or no, they are on a Thursday morning type of thing. So
go with
Tuesday, yeah.
I think people get married Tuesday. On Thursdays too.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
Tuesday at noon.
Good
Rare
rates.
time to
Probably
get married,
good rates.
I think.
Yeah.
Great deals though.
Really good. Yeah. But yeah, and so
every wedding venue in the US.
Yeah.
We'll take some. We'll take some of that.
But yeah, and so it turned into I never stressed. And even when I got asked to do gigs, I was like, this is great. When can I get done with my work week now? Because this is something that's fun and I'm getting paid to do it. There was a weird period though where I stepped away from working full time and ended up working part time. One was at a gym and one was at a donut shop, and so yeah. Yeah, they're great. They're good. They're good
The
jobs.
autobiography on this guy is gonna be amazing.
It was very circular in the sense of, you know, the donut is a
one
circle,
fed the
but
other.
also
One fed the other.
Yeah.
And so
unintended.
And I was relying a little bit more on DJing, and that's when I started losing the joy in it, and I really started looking at it as like a job, and it was like, oh, I want to sell my equipment. Like I don't really want to do this anymore. So just the fact that it was, I don't know, chasing the dollar signs at that point, I guess in a sense creating burnout for me, where it's like I may just quit because I'm like I don't like this feeling anymore. Where I feel like if I don't do this, then I'm gonna have to figure out another way to pay the bills. But long story short, yeah, it turned into I'm still able to have a pretty healthy schedule with DJing. I'm still just as excited for any event that I do get hired for that I used to, opposed to I used to be a little bit nervous. Granted, that may have just come with experience now, where it's like, all right, I know how to do this event now. But yeah, I think there was a healthy growth and balance there, but just kind of not putting all your eggs in one basket. And that I think was a mistake I may have made with DJing, where it's like, I got to go all in on this or else I'm going to die. I think that was an unhealthy mindset I had at the time. But now, fortunately, I'm in a position where it is able to.
Now you're beyond having to go all in.
Yeah.
That's when all in isn't good enough. You just have to go beyond again.
Beyond the. Oh,
Pump.
yeah.
Beyond the pump.
Beyond the pump.
Yep.
Yeah.
Beyond the pain.
Beyond
But-
the, yeah.
But yeah,
the pressure.
if you guys need a DJ for anything, let me know. Self plug.
We'll take some of that.
Yeah, we'll take some of
We'll
that.
take some of that.
Well, and you bring up an interesting point, and it's the idea that you got to do DJing in this instance or something, and then it converted over to a had to do. And when people have to show up, I remember my second business and my first business super successful, my second business super not successful, which then made my first business now not successful. I had to show up and actually do the work. And I was doing more personal training when I got two businesses than I thought I was going to have to, because I now was able to have a team in two different places and they're 40 minutes apart in different states. It'd be great. But now all of a sudden things weren't going well because I was the system and I had to. That contributed a lot to that burnout because I was forced into a spot of having no options. So for you, DJing is like now you had to earn money. That can absolutely happen as well. And I think as we think about things like we get to go work out in the morning. That's a lot of fun, But I imagine sometimes like a professional sports player that's, I guess if you're getting paid like $50 million a year to work out, you'll figure it out.
Yeah.
You'll figure it out. So maybe a bad example, but you get the point. Like when you have to do something that's now related to this thing that you once loved, it does change the perspective on there. So, well, when we think about this, I'm sure there's a lot of people that can relate to this, but I'd love to maybe wrap this up with like a good tip or two from each of us.
Yeah.
We might have already mentioned it here, but just how do we make this last 3-4 minutes really impactful for somebody like, hey, how do I know I'm experiencing burnout? What's going on? I probably went through a time where I remember. How do I prevent it again? Like, what are some closing words we might give to people as we go through this? And while you guys think, I'll kind of lead off. I think you should just pre-plan to make sure you have some trips. And if you can have fun during your trips, like this week, we're obviously in person. This isn't normal for us to be in person, but we're having some fun.
You're welcome.
We're enjoying, we're getting to go out and incorporate fun into our work trip. We worked a long day yesterday. Today is a long day. Tomorrow will be a long day. Friday won't be a crazy long day, but it's 3.5 long days with some travel. But we're clearly having fun. There's some shorts we made today that are going to be like, are these guys like serious? Like what's going on? But we're incorporating fun to the trip of work, which makes it a little bit less work and more hang and enjoy, but still be productive. But in general, what is your trip? I get to know every year in the spring I'm going skiing, right? That's important to me. Every summer I'm going away on my RV. How do I get to go do something during these key points of the year? And those are things that are staples in my life. Those breaks and those distances between each trip might vary and whatnot, and some of them are more surprise and work trips, but I do have those built-in downtimes. Now, my summer, I might be on the RV for 3-4 straight weeks, but I might not take another trip for the rest of the year because of that. So what does that look like? For me, it's just guaranteeing I have a trip at some point in time and trying to incorporate some fun on all of my trips if possible. Sometimes you can't, and I'm not going out partying till 2 a.m. because that's got its whole other set of issues of being tired and burnt out. But I want to enjoy and laugh and just cry a little bit from laughter as we're going around. So those would be the things that I would leave something with.
Yeah, and I actually kind of on a similar note, just I guess if you on a more micro scale, more like a weekly thing for myself, there's been periods where I am just entrenched in work, and I just want to stay home and rest. And for me, I found I need to be very intentional about scheduling times to hang out with friends so that I'm able to decompress. And naturally, I guess I'll even just talk about like, oh, this happened at work. And even that I feel like has been very healthy for my well-being. And so again,
what do you have to complain about work lately?
In push-ups.
Oh, all right.
Press jobs.
Got it.
Yeah, wait a minute. Wait a minute.
Just making sure.
Steve, that's a great question.
Your old boss, Andrew.
Not direct line.
But yeah, and so
There was no valid org chart. So,
but Yeah, my boss, she did quit, but whole story, she got burnt out. We probably
She did.
could have hung out with her. Maybe she, I don't know.
Well,
But yeah, and
burnout
so
changes people.
yeah.
So intentionally spending time with friends.
Yeah, and I think that really helps mitigate the symptoms. Again, you can talk, and even if they're good friends, they'll hopefully want to listen to you and be able to just be a listening ear, because sometimes that's all you really need is just to have someone to vent to. Because if you bottle it all up, and then you start getting into your thoughts, and it's just this whole spiraling effect. And so I think what I learned, a therapist had taught me was grounding, and so being able to ground yourself, and I may different techniques for different people, but for me it's really being able to just verbalize it, like, oh, actually that's really not as bad as I internalized it to be. But and I take at least one day on the weekend to sleep about 8 to 10 hours. Just really helps me recover.
For grounding, I like the grounding blankets where you plug them into the grounding socket of the wall. Those work wonders.
Is that a real thing?
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, you gotta navigate the plug around the fork though. Can't do both at the same time, unfortunately, because you take a really good recovery period if you stick that fork in that socket. Trust me, that's a dirt nap. Light at the end of the tunnel, give yourself something to look forward to, socializing, verbalizing. I think that those are really great strategies. And so, just to kind of contribute something a little bit different in that sometimes you don't have the opportunity to get out of it. You're just in it. And, someone that's chronically overworked, from the perspective of I really lean into it, and I derive a lot of my identity and value from how useful I feel. I think that I had a guy that I worked for at a previous company. It's not the most recent one, so everyone's calm down. Right.
Where's this
triggered.
Going?
And
I'm that
he
guy.
was before that. But this guy was he was a personal trainer, and then he went into a assistant training manager role, right? And then he was always then he eventually helped open a club. It was a beautiful new shiny location. He was a training manager there, and he was always just chomping at the bit to try to get to the general manager position. That was his end goal. And every day he woke up, and every day he wasn't in that role, he felt a little more resentful. He felt a little more irritated, just angsty. And I remember we were sitting in his office for one of the few one-on-ones we ever had, and he was like, they told me that I should probably just chill and stop trying to rush it. And I think that it's such a great paradigm to offer, in that if you can't change your circumstances, you can change your perspective. The same way that when people on Monday look forward to Friday, it's still a calendar week, but then on Friday, people dread Sunday. And it's the same day, it's the same opportunity, it's the same situation, although it's just what we are looking forward to and what we're living into, and how we more or less show up those days dreading or hoping for the future. Change your perspective and look forward, and exactly what you said, light at the end of the tunnel. You don't have to do that on a yearly, monthly basis. You don't even have to do it on a weekly basis, but noticing the things that are going really well in your life, and even creating some kind of note or document of what are the good things that happened to me today, I think is one of the ways that people can start to generate a little more of the appreciation of their day-to-day, because we don't get this time back. And spending it wishing that it were different, or that we were somewhere else other than where we are, I think is a really powerful way to, be more influential in our day-to-day and more charismatic, and at the same time, just generally appreciate things and slow down instead of wishing it were somewhere else. So, yeah, that's what I had to say about that. So I'm going to close this out.
Well, there we go. If you're dealing with burnout, if you're struggling with suck it up. No. Hopefully something here hits home. You find a way to go and work through that, make more space in your life to make the adjustments that you have to. And at the end of the day, your feelings are your feelings. They're real. You still have a job to get done, whether you own a business, you're an employee. There is a balance that has to be achieved, but there is a real thing going on. Make sure you're in the right season and go do what you got to do to make sure that you're good for the long haul, because you burnt out and tired is no help to your company, to the company you work for, and the people that ultimately you care about and you're trying to help within whatever realm that looks like. So
lean in. Till next time.
Like, rate, subscribe, share, review, all the things.
Make sure you rate it high.